Your turn to call into Fox 13 is coming up. Let's check in with Kathy Fountain. Kathy?
Denise, you know, this is an issue that we all have to face at some point, long-term care for getting older. Whether it's your own life we're talking about, maybe you're facing care for your aging parents. It can be very confusing, whether it's assisted living or in-home care or a nursing home. How do you choose? Which one do you choose? And then, of course, how do you pay for it? Few people can pay out of pocket. Do you know what the new laws say about how to qualify for government help? If you don't plan now, you could be caught off guard and it could cost you plenty. A lawyer has a brand new book out that simplifies the process and hopefully answers your questions. So we'll take your calls later on Your Turn. Denise, back to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Let's turn things over to Kathy Fountain. Kathy?
All right, thank you, Denise. Coming up, don't get caught off guard when you or an aging parent needs long-term care or a nursing home. If you don't plan now, it could hit you and could eat up all of your savings. And some new laws are really affecting the way you can qualify for government assistance. Do you know how that has changed? Do you know how to protect your assets? Do you know how to really choose an assisted living facility or nursing home? A new book lays it all out in simple terms and answers your questions, so give us a call about that. Elder law attorney Sean Scott is coming up with his new book next on Your Turn.
You're watching Your Turn. If it matters to you, it's important to us.
You know, nobody likes to really think about it, the prospect of taking care of an aging parent, or even the idea that you yourself might one day need some nursing home care, but it's something we all have to face at some point. But how do you choose an assisted living facility or a nursing home? Would you know what to look for? Or how about bringing care into the home? And then, of course, how to pay for it. Few people can afford to pay out of pocket, and the laws have changed about how to qualify for government help that you need to know about. Elder law attorney Sean Scott from Pinellas County has just written a brand new book called The Medicaid Handbook 2008, Planning for Long-Term Care. There's the cover, literally hot off the presses,
literally
right,
Sean? Still warm,
very,
I think.
very
Still
warm. It is sure good to have you here because, you know, this is not something we like to talk about, but we certainly have to. Sean, if people don't think about it, if they don't talk about it, you can kind of get caught off guard, can't you?
You know, I walked into the studios today. It's absolutely beautiful out today. Fantastic day. And the last thing on anybody's mind is going into a nursing home.
That's right.
You just don't plan for it. Even when you start to get older or you have a parent who's aging, you still love to live in that state of denial. When that problem eventually comes home, however, and you're facing that nursing home, you have huge problems and oftentimes know where to turn. One of the reasons why we wrote this was to bring some information into the public so that they could have a guide to look at. Where do I go? How do I get there?
Right.
And as you say, how do I pay for it?
And I think because it's such a topic that people like to avoid, they really don't frequently plan for it. And then they have no plan until all of a sudden
You run into
mom or
this
dad gets a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or something happens, and then what do you do?
Right.
So
And
they probably come to you and go, oh,
a lot of
now
times
I'm
we
stuck.
call that crisis planning. I also call those particular clients my uh-oh clients.
Yeah.
The reason why, they just gotten back from the nursing home or they pulled the bill out of the mailbox and they go, uh-oh, how am I going to pay this $6,000 or $7,000 a month bill in the nursing home? So that's a huge issue.
So you have nursing homes, you have assisted living facilities, and then you have care that comes into the home. And those are, I guess, sort of the three options that you would be looking at.
You know, as we age, we call it a continuum of care. And you and I are all able to take care of ourselves. We take that for granted every day. But as we age, we start to need more assistance. This continuum's like a rainbow or a spectrum. You start out being independent, able to do all your own thing, and work your way through eventually to the nursing home where you need this substantial assistance. It's hard sometimes to define where you're at on that rainbow of care. Sometimes you know it when you know it when you see it as well. The three ways we do it are at home, assisted living, and nursing home care. How much level of care do you have? And we'll situate where you go. So.
We have a graphic that I wanted to put up for you to sort of begin this discussion with us, and it's about the three different ways there are to pay for long-term care, either for yourself, plan for yourself, or for your aging parents. And the first one is private pay.
Sure.
Now, how expensive is that?
Well, at least $6,000 to $7,000 a month for nursing home care.
A month?
A month. A lot of times people think, well, I'll just stay at home and that'll be cheaper. You can double that for what it costs for home care. If you're going to be supplying the same level of care that a nursing home would be applying inside your own home, twice that amount.
So you're saying 10 or 12,000 a month to
If
bring
you're
someone in?
at home.
If you're at
Yes.
home.
Yes.
So maybe a lot of people have saved for their retirement.
Right.
And they think, okay, well, I'll probably never go in a nursing home, but if I did, I would have the money to pay for this. So how
Well,
long
do the
would
math yourself. $6,000, $7,000 a month. How long is that going to last you?
I mean, that's a lot of money per year. So a lot of folks get there and realize that they could eat through all of their savings in a matter of a couple of years.
Exactly, exactly. A couple of years or even a year, depending upon where. A lot of seniors will arrive at this golden age and they'll have a modest nest egg that they've amassed across their lifetime. It's different for different people, but the average that we see coming in is, you know, 60, 70, maybe $100,000 that they've managed to squirrel away during their life.
Right.
That's gone in a year in a nursing home.
Wow.
Done.
So the second option on the graphic that you mentioned is this long-term care insurance, which is so darn expensive.
I love
Sean.
it. I know people say this. I have a seminar that I do every month at local libraries, and I always ask the question, how many people in the audience have long-term care insurance? And I can tell you, probably 1 or 2 at best out of 30 or 40 people have long-term care insurance.
Because it's expensive.
And I ask them, well, why don't you have it? And they say, because it's too expensive. You just said that. It's a problem, however, of what we see as value. And it comes all tied back to the point that if I asked you, are you ever going to go to a nursing home? You know, your rational mind may say, well, yeah, maybe, but your gut
really,
level says, no way am I ever going
Right,
into a nursing home.
right.
So why would I buy insurance? I don't care how much it costs for something that I'm never going to need. Or at least I feel emotionally that I'll never need.
So then who is the type of person who really should make the investment and the sacrifice to buy long-term?
It's pretty simple.
Sure,
I mean,
insurance.
if you look at what you have to insure, if you have a substantial amount of assets, a couple $100,000, $300,000 or $400,000, you should start to think about it. And as you raise that value up until about $1 million, $1.5 million, you're a good sweet spot for having long-term care insurance. If you get above that range and you're very wealthy, a lot of times you don't need to have it because you're self-insured.
You could pay.
Because you can pay out of the investments that you have.
Right.
Well, you can afford it, but you don't really need it. It's that sweet spot in between there. If you're below $100,000 or a couple, maybe 150, 100, long-term care insurance starts not to be a good idea.
Right,
So-
right. And the third option, which is what your book really talks quite a bit about, is to pay for a nursing home through Medicaid.
Correct.
Right.
You know, Medicaid is this public benefit that was created in late 1960s to solve this particular problem of how do we take care of people when they run into this nursing home care. It started out as a welfare program, basically, as part of being able to provide health care for everyone. It's changed over time, though. In 1988, there's some big changes that happened that turned it really into almost a middle-class entitlement, which means people like us and our parents now can access this program to pay for the cost of care.
But only if you have very few assets.
There are
Isn't
some.
it $2,000 is the most you can have and qualify?
I tell a story at my seminars about the fact that how much assets you have really is not relevant. Because at some point in time, we need to look and see how much you have. But when we come down to qualifying you for benefits, what I do is I change that picture so in order to meet that eligibility qualification.
Okay, let's take a break and hear about some of the strategies for protecting your parents or your own assets if you do have to qualify for Medicaid and go into a nursing home. We will be right back with Sean Scott. All right, this is an interesting statistic. 75% of your typical nursing home residents are on Medicaid. This is out of Sean Scott's new book. He's an elder law attorney in Pinellas County. It's called The Medicaid Handbook 2008, Planning for Long-Term Care. Okay, so we talked about you can either private pay if you have the money, or you can buy long-term health insurance, or you can qualify for Medicaid.
Right.
How does a person, under the new laws, and I know they've just changed,
It's a huge change in the new laws.
qualify to get Medicaid to go into a nursing home?
I refer to them as tests, eligibility tests or eligibility requirements. The black and white of it is you have to meet certain financial tests, you have to have certain medical eligibility, and you have to be of a certain age. The age one's pretty simple. You have to be 65 years of age or older. There's an exception to that if you're disabled. You can be less than 65 if you're disabled. The sick enough test, which is how medically complex you are, is another one you have to pass. Basically also fairly easy to understand. Do you need to be in the nursing home medically or not? It's this financial test where we spend a lot of our time. That's broken down into 2 subparts. One is how much income you make on a monthly basis, and the other one is how much assets you have.
which have to be pretty low. According to the guidelines.
It depends. Okay, there's an inquiry on the asset side that looks at whether you're single or whether you're married. If you're married, you can have up to $106,400 and still qualify for Medicaid benefits. Plus keep your house, plus keep your car, plus keep your IRA, plus keep plus.
Really?
So there's a lot of things that fall outside of what's counted as an asset and still allow you to qualify.
Because, you know, I think a lot of people are afraid they will be caught in this and not qualify for Medicaid, and they start giving their money away to their kids every Christmas, and, you know.
I mean, you see my reaction to that.
Yeah.
Oh, you cannot do that.
You cannot
Let me be very, very clear.
You cannot give
away
money as gifts?
Under this new rules, especially that President Bush signed last year, that went into effect, very important date, on November 1st, 2007. The new rules say that any gift you make, I don't care whether it's for Christmas, birthday, charitable, your church, your synagogue, doesn't matter. If it's a gift, it disqualifies you for Medicaid. Based upon the amount of days even. So if you give away a couple $100s, it's going to disqualify you for a couple of days in the nursing home.
Can you transfer your house, your car, an investment vehicle to an adult child and not make it a gift and qualify?
Ooh, we're running a lot of words in there together. I'm going to say yes. Okay.
Transfer as opposed to gift.
Yes,
you might be able to, there are some ways.
Yeah, the word transfer and gift, so you got to be very careful on your language here.
Okay,
The lawyerly answer is I reposition those assets.
Reposition.
Okay, and that's the euphemism that I will use to kind of encompass all the things that we can do under the rules in order to reposition those assets, protect, preserve them, and still become eligible for benefits.
Wow. And the new laws have made it hard. I mean, you have to be more picky now about how you
You know, when I first saw these laws, I absolutely hated them because I thought they were just the most terrible laws I've ever seen, draconian, incredibly senior unfriendly. And then the lawyer part of me came in and said, these are great laws.
Really?
For me.
That you can help people?
No, because now people can't get eligible unless they have somebody like me helping them. And that's, I mean, I say that with some sort of effect that you understand. When I say it's good for me, it's bad for you.
Yeah. Okay. Jenny in Sebring, what do you have to say or question?
Hi. My mother-in-law is in an assisted living with early dementia, and she's 84, but her family generally lives into their mid-90s. Our insurance agent is trying to sell us an annuity called a non-qualified senior safeguard option, and he told us that if we put, he's using $300,000 into this annuity, it would pay her an income so much each month for 7 years. And he said that if that money is in a contract, then Medicaid can't attach the asset except for the monthly payments. We don't want to sign the annuity or take a chance that that's not true.
I read about this in the book. You go ahead.
It's a big issue, Kathy. It's a big issue. Annuities and annuity salesmen. I'm not dissing annuity salesmen. I'm not putting them down in any way. However, there's a breach in information here. Under the new rules, that annuity is going to be counted as an asset unless you name the state of Florida as the beneficiary after you die.
Not your family, the state.
Not your family. If you don't name the state, it's an asset. So if you buy $300,000 worth of annuity and you go to apply for Medicaid benefits, I don't care what the guy's told you, it's going to disqualify you for Medicaid benefits.
Wow.
So a huge disconnect in information that's out there.
Yeah.
When it comes to annuities, I got to tell you, please, extreme caution is warranted.
Wow. And so, you know, it's interesting that you say, I think a lot of people don't know they can keep their home and still qualify for Medicaid.
There's a huge amount of assets that are huge. I mean, to me, your home is probably the single largest asset that you have. You can keep that. President Bush, however, added some limitations to that in the new law. The new limitations say that it has to be less than $500,000. But for most of us, we don't have houses worth more than $500,000, so it's not that big of a deal.
But if you're a couple and one of you goes in the nursing home and the other can stay living in the home and doesn't have to sell the home in order for your partner or husband to go into the nursing home and not qualify for Medicaid?
Regardless of whether you're married or single, your house will always be not counted as an asset.
So you can still pass that along to your heirs if you want to.
Florida's pretty neat about that. Our Constitution has an interesting provision that says that your home goes to your heirs without any creditors attaching to it. So if you think about this, Medicaid's a creditor when you die. They want to get paid back for what they paid for you in the nursing home. They can't touch your house.
Bill in Lake Wales, go ahead, sir. Turn down your TV, Bill.
Oops.
Yes, hello.
Go.
Yes, does moving your assets or representing your assets, I guess is a better word, into a trust fund qualify under this new law?
Bill, that's a good question. The issue of trusts always winds its way through our discussion of Medicaid. It depends on what kind of trust we're talking about. If that trust is a revocable living trust, which a lot of us will use, plan our estate to give it to our kids when we die, the transfer of your assets from you to that trust has really no effect. It doesn't help you. It doesn't hurt you. It's really like taking it out of one pocket and put it in your other pocket. It's still your money. If you take that money and you place it into an irrevocable trust, that's with an I, an irrevocable trust, that will place that money outside of your accountability, except it's going to be subject to transfer penalty rules, just like if you gave it to your kids.
Right.
So the use of trust at the early stages of Medicaid planning, not really something that we do.
All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. This confuses a lot of people, and what to look for in a nursing home. Back in a moment. Here's an interesting statistic out of Sean Scott's new book. 1 out of every 3 men will enter a nursing home prior to them passing away. Well, 1 out of every 2 women will enter a nursing home. So this is a reality for lots and lots of people in our society, Sean. Let's put up the graphic, because you know what's always confusing to me, and I think a lot of people, is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Sure. So, and you know, just talk a little bit about this graphic, if you will. Medicare, just explain the difference here in some of these areas.
Health insurance for seniors, it's much more of an insurance program. Medicare, the problem with Medicare is it sounds so much like Medicaid. And almost every senior, if you're competent at all, knows what Medicare is, because you're relying upon it for your health care. The misperception is that that's going to take care of your health care in a nursing home.
It really, because
it doesn't.
You say it only takes care of 100 days. Right, so then you'd have Medicaid, actually what you'd use for this.
Exactly, and that's why there's so much confusion over the two. They sound alike, they do similar things, except Medicare is only going to pay up for a maximum of 100 days. It's only going to pay the first 20 days 100% of the bill. After that, you have about $128 a day copay, which is still a pretty significant amount. And regardless, at day 101, you're done.
And Medicare doesn't pay for medications. It's the Medicaid that pays for medications. And Medicare may have a copay. You know, this is very confusing to people, and you really make it simple in your book so that, I mean, I actually got it. I think it's a very, very confusing thing to think about. And the other thing you point out, and I want to ask you about, is that if you do make the investment in this long-term care insurance, which some people feel like this is a smart thing to do.
Very much a smart thing to do.
You have to be real careful, because there may be provisions in there that you don't realize that would make them not pay, like hospital stays first and not enough.
You know, my father used to sell insurance for a living, and he taught me a lot of great lessons. And one of great lessons is this:
read the fine print.
Read the print, but also know that insurance companies are in the business of doing one thing: collecting premiums, not paying claims. It's a fact. It's a business fact. You as a consumer should understand that. I'm not anti-insurance. I think insurance is a great way of managing a risk. If you go in and you're going to look at long-term care insurance, some new provisions under this most recent law we need to make a point of is they provide something called a partnership program. And the partnership program with the state of Florida it's actually very neat. For every $1 of insurance you buy, that's an extra $1 that you can keep without having to reposition or do anything fancy with it, and still be able to qualify for Medicaid benefits.
Is that only in Florida?
It's across the country, but each state has adopting their policies individually. Florida, you can do under a partnership program, $1 for $1. So if you have $100,000 of long-term care insurance, that's an extra $100,000 you can keep of assets and still qualify for Medicaid.
Okay, let's put up the graphic on actually choosing a nursing home. Some of the questions, Sean, that you should ask yourself when you walk in and you're considering this for your parent.
My favorite one is this: follow your nose.
Follow your nose.
Follow your
nose. You mean
nose.
do the sniff test?
Do the sniff test, absolutely. It's one of the big issues. Anytime you have some sort of odor that is going to concern you, that is usually an indication of a lack of or a lower staffing level than is necessary.
Really?
The reason why you smell those things is because that problem is not being taken care of because they don't have enough people to take care of it. That's a big, it's a huge issue. Smell tests, huge issue.
Location, you mentioned
That's also one of my most important ones. Location, location, location. You've heard about it in real estate. Three most important things for where you're going to buy your new house: location, location, location. Where are you going to use your nursing home? Same thing. Make sure it's close to where your caregivers are. So usually you're not using it for yourself, your children will be. If you're the child and you're choosing this, make sure that it's close to your house or at least on your way to work so that you can make that visit on a routine basis. The single thing that's going to determine what your quality of care is in the facility
close you are,
is how often you're visited.
and how quickly you can pop in.
The more you're visited, the better your care is.
So let me ask you this. There is a perception that if you're a private pay, you get better care than if you're a Medicaid patient.
This is one of those things that we somehow want to believe. I can't figure out why psychologically we want to believe this, but it's absolutely not true.
Really?
There is no distinction on the quality of care somebody receives if they're paying privately versus being on Medicaid. And if you think about it, all of us are paying for that person to be there on Medicaid, right? Are we paying for them to get substandard care? Absolutely not. The federal law says you cannot do that. If you do that as a nursing home, you will then lose your right to receive Medicare and Medicaid, which is they're not going to do that. They don't do it.
So you're saying that when you go in and you help people, and this is your business, so people come to you and help you work through this maze, that when they put their family in a nursing home on their own Medicaid, they get the same care as a private pay.
Exactly the same care. Sometimes, I'm going to tell you this, better care.
Why?
Because I've taken those funds, repositioned them so they're available out there to be used. Medicaid's paying my core bill and the nursing home, and I take those funds and bring them back for extra care, private room, extra therapies, private duty aid, all the bonuses.
Wow. Okay. And then a final thing here, questions that you should ask yourself before you put someone in a nursing home. Got a minute left here.
One of the things I got to be careful with is what we shouldn't ask yourself, is this someplace where I want to be? Sometimes that's not the right question. Does this place look nice to me? I don't care whether they have Ethan Allen furniture in there or not. That is not the key factor. The key factor is how good the care is that's being provided. Some of the best facilities in Pinellas County and Hillsborough County, if I walked you in, you'd go, wow, this isn't very nice. But they're on the top of my list because of the care that they provide. So be careful on assessing it from some sort of facial or face level of just how pretty it is, because that's not what's the most important thing.
I see. It's the level of care that really is the most important thing. And to seek legal advice. I mean, there's a maze to get through with all of this.
I see this every day, and I cannot see how anybody, and I'm not just trying to put a feather in my own cap, but how anybody can get through this without some assistance. It's unbelievable.
All right. Information about his book when we come back. Many thanks to Sean Scott. Great information here in his new book, the Medicaid Handbook 2008. You can get it at the website virtuallawoffice.com. Also on Amazon. He also is having a book signing tomorrow at 3 o'clock at Haslam's Bookstore in St. Petersburg. This is just, I know we don't all like to talk about it, but this is just valuable information. Yes, Sean, really appreciate you coming by. Right. Have a great afternoon, everybody.